I know you're really busy, so I'll get right into it. No small talk. All right, so let's set the scene. PTI, kind of against anybody's expectations, maybe even including yours, has become like a big success. And now you are launching Around the Horn. What's the process like of coming up with that game show idea, coming up with Bill Wolf and Max Kellerman, and getting it onto the air?
Really, the same process is, pardon the interruption, which was I laid out a template of what I was looking for, which was opinion, debate, and news from various corners of the country. So let's go to publications that have relevance, great credentials, terrific reporting staff, journalistic chops, hopefully some personalities in the space of sports. Dallas Morning News, LA Times, Chicago, Miami. Just go around the country and let's have a daily show where they can report in on news that's breaking either in their area or comment on national news and be a part of that discourse and that debate. And how we then curate the right talent, right, strike the right deals with the right mastheads, get the right personalities, auditions, and then the actual devices over the course of the show. To your point, whether it's the clock, the points, the graphics, whatever it might be, that's the part that needs to be brainstormed. And Jim Cohen, who was running ESPN Original Entertainment for me, did the exact same thing as he did with PTI. He threw in a bunch of, I'm not going to call them misfits, but they were eccentrics, some experts, some not so experts, some fans, some folks in the business. He put them into a conference room and they brainstormed for a week and they came out with a bunch of ideas. We threw them up against the wall. We debated them and we ultimately, came out with a format that we thought was workable. And of course, you don't know, Ryan, what's going to work until you then actually get into the studio and start doing it. And to Jim's credit, I mean, he'll get someone who works at the supermarket off the aisle who's just a good sports fan. I think he brought his dentist into the room who's a big sports fan. I mean, it was a real eclectic group.
Jim's a Badger. I've gotten to know him a little bit.
We won't hold that against him as a Hawkeye.
How does Max Kellerman become the host?
Look, Max, I think, is a sensational, reporter and commentary as it relates to boxing. Everybody knows that. But he has a good personality. He's an up-and-comer. He's got a lot of energy. He's extremely bright and articulate. And we just thought that he would be somebody good for that show. And once we got into the auditions, it was abundantly clear that he was the right kind of central command to move forward.
Are there any other people that auditioned that would be like funny to think about today? Like, oh my God, what if they hosted it?
I wish there was, but we really went out to Max, and then it was just a question of
He's
striking.
in his mid-20s, so it's like, people don't really get jobs like that in their like mid-20s.
You know what, though? He wasn't afraid to bring it. He wasn't afraid to take a controversial, to put forward a controversial take. He didn't shy away from opinion. He knew how to speak in sound bites. We knew he'd be terrific at directing traffic. And he was carving out one hell of a niche and personality for himself in boxing, and we thought he could go broader. And by the way, he was terrific when he was the host.
It's wild that both of these shows lasted over 20 years. I mean, that's very rare in this space, let alone to come up with two of them like back to back. And I do think they kind of fed into each other with the whole happy hour and the journalistic lineage and the there was really innovative production on both of these shows, the way that they were like laid out.
I'll tell you, what we knew we wanted was, look, sports is argument. Look at the power and the success of sports radio. And we wanted that on television in not so much of a radio format. So we built it backwards because all the sales guys were telling us it's going to hurt SportsCenter. We can't sell it. You'll never do ratings. It'll never hit critical mass. I can't tell you what we were up against, Ryan. It was just literally, if I wasn't running programming, and don't get me wrong, the success of a show has to do with the talent and the format. So there's a long string of people that deserve credit for that. But in running programming, I was able to just kind of stuff it through. And we built backwards because Around the Horn became a hit. And then we put Jim Rome's Burning 30 minutes before that. And that did strong numbers. And we sold that really well. And then we put a condensed version of First and 10. If you remember, First and 10 was on Cold Pizza. It was Skip Bayless versus Stephen A. Smith, moderated by Jay Crawford. We really took those segments and we cut them down to a condensed version. I mean, the show cost us $10, and we put that then at 3:00 Eastern, and that was a winner for us. And obviously, ultimately gave birth to what is now known as First Take.
Yeah, and I didn't even remember that the First and 10 got like cut up and put into that 3 p.m. slot. I had no recollection.
Yeah, they do. In the mornings of Cold Pizza, by the way, the highest rated segment we had, so we knew we had something. We had Stephen A. versus Skip Bayless with Jay Crawford moderating. They do like 5, go to commercial, come back and do the other 5. So and of course those two guys.
Yeah, it wasn't just Stephen A. though. It was like rotating people. It was like
Jamel. Well, it started with a collection of people, but it ended with Stephen A. and Skip Bayless.
Yeah, they it's a pretty like amazing like legacy of like a 2-hour block that you had right there.
Sometimes the luck has a lot to play.
Were you still in the mix when Bill Wolf and Max left, or were you gone by then?
Oh no, I was there.
So then how did you like decide that reality was the natural successor to Max?
That's a simple one. I remember that like it was yesterday. We were in a contract dispute with Max. His deal was up and he wanted too much money. It's that simple. And he wasn't moving and I wasn't bluffing. And ultimately it was a divorce. Like, I don't know that at the time he took us seriously and thought ultimately we'd cave and that he was, too integral to the success of the show. But we didn't believe that was the case. I mean, Woody had obviously blossomed, and Plashke was obviously a big voice, and Bob Ryan in Boston really worked. I mean, there were a lot of names that were really working, and it became clear we just needed an air traffic controller, one with opinion and personality and humor, and could hold his own with some of those big names. But the central part of the show, the reason you were tuning in, wasn't for the host. So it was Jim Cohen that came forward and said, "Hey, what do you think in the interim if we make Stat Boy the host?" And I just, yeah, go ahead, do it. See how it goes. Like, ESPN had so much wind at its back. I mean, it seemed like we could almost do no wrong when it came to live events or original programming. Whatever we put up there, we were in such a position of strength, we drew viewership. So I figured if I really believe those reporters are the stars and the personalities, as long as he's a good air traffic cop, this may just work. But it worked better than I ever would have anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, he's done a great job with it for a long time.
Obviously, especially on the PTI side, I mean, Eric Rydholm was just terrific, and ultimately it made a lot of sense when we were going to put the shows under one umbrella. It was good to put them all with Rydholm, and he's been not just an amazing caretaker, but an amazing executive producer and a creative force to his own.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Have a great one, and hopefully we'll speak again soon.